מלוך לכל העולם כולו בכבודך איי איי וינשא על כל הארץ ביקרך ועופר בדר גאון עוזך על כל יושבי תבל ארצך ועופר.
Hello everyone, this is the finale of asking for rain for the traveler, but we're not going to talk today about going from Israel to places that they ask for rain a bit later, but rather traveling to places where they literally do not need rain. What do I mean? It means traveling to the Southern Hemisphere. If you go to Argentina, if you go to Brazil, if you go to Melbourne, Australia, or South Africa, and ultimately they do not need rain at the same times of the year that the other people need rain. In a word, their winter is our summer is their winter, and therefore the question comes, when should they ask for rain? So, in order to answer this question, let's take a step back and put down the fundamentals. The Shulchan Aruch is not willing to concede that, say, in Melbourne, they'll ask for rain at a totally different time than they ask for it in London. However, he says, since it should be that the request for rain be a function of where you live, if you made a mistake, then you could go back and fix it, but you don't have to. From this perspective, that's exactly what happened to me. The first time I visited Australia, I was ultra jet lagged, 9-hour difference between Israel and Australia. It's the middle of February, totally summer outside, 9:30 p.m. Ma'ariv, and I said very naturally, V'tein bracha. And all of a sudden it hit me, we're in the middle of February. The Shulchan Aruch's psak is clear that indeed, if an entire country does need rain, ta'aba yachid v'sha'al matar bebirkat hashanim, im rotzeh chozer u'mitpalel b'torat nedava belo she'ela bebirkat hashanim, aval ino mechuyav lachzor, Klal, says the Ramah. However, when it comes to giving praise to God, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGeshem, there the Shulchan Aruch is clear, and he says that even if you live in a place where they don't need rain right now, you ask like the rest of the Jewish people. So why is he so adamant about the praise, but when it comes to the request, he sees a little leeway? Explains the Mishnah Berurah very simply, when you talk about request, it's what you need, and it happens to be that in Melbourne, Australia, they need rain in June. However, when it comes to praising God, you can't praise God that he gives rain, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGeshem, if that praise is a curse in a certain place. So therefore, we don't play around with the praise. But when it comes to the request in Barech Aleinu, there is room for a certain leeway. Not much, but a little bit. In general, the Shulchan Aruch says, you ask like the rest of the world. And the question is, so what do we do in places like Argentina and Brazil and whatnot? So Baruch Hashem, there were Rabbanim that lived there, and they had to paskin on these shilas. And in general, there are 3 points of view on it. The first point of view is that you basically never ask for rain when it's bad for the country. However, in such a situation, if you do need rain when most of the people don't ask for rain, say in June in Brazil, then you can ask for it only in Shomei Tefillah. That's the way Rav Chaim Shabtai answers the question that he got from Brazil. He was a rabbi in Saloniki between 1557 to 1647, and he ultimately said that you cannot ask for rain when it's a curse for you. It's just absolutely outrageous to ask God for rain when it's a curse for you. However, he says, when you need rain, say in June, and in Israel, and in North America, and in London, they don't need rain, then he only concedes, as the Shulchan Aruch says, to ask for it in Shomei Tefillah. In a word, they never change V'tein bracha. They say it all year. However, they will say V'tein talumata levracha in Shomei Tefillah, and there only. So, going from Brazil to another place in the Southern Hemisphere, and that is Argentina. Indeed, Rav Shaul Sethholm, who wrote the Dvar Shaul, he already lived in the 20th century, he says, and I quote, B'yamot HaKayit Shelahem, Ein shoalim v'lo maskrim shamim klal. In their summer, they cannot ask for rain. That's ridiculous. Uv'yamot ha'chorev shelahem, during their winter, say June, July, August, yesh lamar b'shamei tefillah. So opinion number one is, all year long, never ask for rain. The only time you ask for rain is during your winter and only in Shomei Tefillah. The second point of view, totally radical on the other side, is that you follow this Northern Hemisphere. So, indeed, going from Brazil and Argentina to the next place, and that is Melbourne, Australia, Rav Avram Aver Hershkovitz asked Rav Yitzchak Elchanan Spector what to do, and he basically says that even in places where they don't need rain, they have to do what the Shulchan Aruch said, and that is that from a certain date to a certain date you ask for rain, from a certain date to a certain date you don't, and you don't change it just because in your locale you happen to need it. Very, very radical. Explains the Piskei Tshuvos that the Ritva goes against the Rambam and says that we do not change the dates based on our subjective needs. The only time to ask for rain is during the time between Sukkot and Pesach, and therefore that's what the whole world should do. And in places where they don't need rain at that particular time, when they say leave racha after asking v'tein talu matar, they should have in mind it should be a blessing for the places where it's a blessing. Not here, where having rain now is not a blessing. Totally in the middle is, of course, the position of Rav Chaim Brisker, as brought by Rav Moshe Sternbuch. Rav Moshe Sternbuch brings the position of Rav Chaim Brisker regarding another place, and that is Johannesburg, in which he says, once again, that you should say it in Shomei Tefillah only, and he thought that even the Chazan should do it, but then he saw that the Mishnah Berurah says, not only in your silent Shmoneh Esrei, and ultimately you're covered. As we said earlier in the series, if you're obligated to say v'tein talu matar livracha, you can always fix it in Shomei Tefillah. And if you're not obligated, you'd say v'tein bracha, so that's the middle position. Well, what's fascinating is, how do we explain this radical position that you're going to ask for rain when you don't need it, just because that's the dates that are written in Masechet Tanis and in the Shulchan Aruch? So I really don't know how Rav Avraham Aver Hershkovitz explained it. I can give two explanations. The first explanation is the Bach, and it's a little scary, but he does say that ultimately, namely, you can only do it based on the dates in the Gemara and the Shulchan Aruch. And he heard that two Gdolim, they actually went ahead in a drought in their locale, and they changed the dates, and they all died an early death. So we don't play around. He's already the heebie-jeebie reason. But the Piskei Tshuvos actually brings a very logical reason today. And that is that since we knew today with our technology how to utilize the rain, not just during the rain season, but even after the rain season, we know how to store it, we know how to do things with it. Therefore, we ultimately ask for rain, and it really makes no difference what season you're in, because since the technology allows it, you can ask for rain at any time. You ask God for rain, and then you thank God for rain, and you say, Tein bracha, in the rain we stored, or we had. And that's basically the way the world works today with modern technology. So therefore, at the end of the day, if you go to the Southern Hemisphere, nobody allows you to change Barech Aleinu in Shomei Tefillah Machlokes, and I personally advise, say it in Shomei Tefillah for a simple reason. If you're wrong, you fixed it. But more importantly, your davening should reflect where you are.